Welcome to the Frenzy, everybody. It's the Iceman, Matt Freites, and we are here for some football frenzy. We're going to fire some coaches today. We're going to talk about some fraud programs, and hopefully we'll move it along to get to the NFL. Welcome, everybody. As I said, Iceman, Matt Freites, and of course, back after 2 weeks, the coach, Brad Powell. Brad, it's good to see you.
Iceman, good to see you too, my friend. Duty called last week, a little dad duty, as it goes sometimes. But glad to be back at it this week. Tons of drama, as you know, I love the drama in the college football world to talk about, and looking forward to getting into it.
There was some drama, and it's something that I sort of alluded to last week. I did a solo episode. It's been a minute since I've done one of those, but it was a good time. And yes, there's some drama we got to talk about, but I do want to say, man, I have to send my condolences because both of your kids had the same thing, hand, foot, and mouth at the same time. I've been through that, and I've never had, or apparently I've had it because I didn't get it. It's one of those things like chickenpox. Apparently, if you have it, it's highly unlikely that you'll get it again. So congrats to you and the wife and the OG for surviving.
Yeah, our son definitely got it worse. My daughter, actually, she had gotten it when she was younger. She got
Really?
it again. When she got it when she was younger, my wife got it, and she got it really bad. Like, she couldn't even wear shoes, man. Like,
Yes.
it was bad news. It's been going around. Like, it went through half her softball team. It's been going around the school. My mom
Kids.
lives 30 miles away. It's been going around the schools there. So I don't know what it is, or who patient zero was of the hand, foot, and mouth epidemic of 2025. But glad we're on the mend here. Little guy's still randomly battling a fever, but that's just life of preschool, I guess.
This age, man, I'm telling you, 5, 6, they start getting in public school. Oh boy, we're bracing for that, let me tell you. But let's get into the meat of this episode. Last week, I talked about Penn State. Now, you and I texted throughout, I think, the entirety of the Penn State-Oregon game, which seems like an eternity ago, especially if you're a Penn State fan. And then Penn State did the thing that felt like they could not do, and they lost to UCLA. Would you agree with me that UCLA probably was the biggest laughingstock of Power 4 college football up until that point?
Yes, they were certainly in the conversation, no doubt about that. And they fired their coach. The poor guy, Neuheisel, right? I can't remember his first name, but he's the interim. He's calling the plays. He forgot to push the button on his headset a few times to even get a play in.
Mm-hmm.
And they still managed to win the game. And for a while they were really putting it on him. I know Penn State kind of came back there and made it interesting down the wire, but UCLA gets a W somehow, some way, in front of a couple thousand fans at the Rose Bowl, I'm sure. And that's just it. And I do think I saw that James Franklin mentioned travel among the
He
reasons that
did.
he thought his team struggled. And
He did.
I text you and I said, if he even says anything about travel, if I was in that room, I would say, well, it didn't seem to bother Oregon last week.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was on Political Football last night. I jumped on just to chat it up with the guys, and we got to Penn State. We got there because I mentioned that, or Dave asked, when is Mike McDaniel going to get fired? And I said, hopefully when Virginia Tech ponies up the dough to make him the head coach. And we kind of got into how that would be a fun experiment. And he took the on-ramp to say, well, now that we're talking about this, and he mentioned Penn State, and we started talking about it and how James Franklin is the kind of coach where if he comes and sits on your couch, you're going to want to play for that guy. There's something about him, probably the way that he presents himself. He's very old school in that feel. Remember I said that about Brent Pry, that he was a guy, hey, if he's on the couch and he's like, hey, I'm going to take care of your kid, you kind of believe that. And that's not really how college football works anymore. But also at the same time, they've never won anything of consequence. Even if you look at the players that have gone into the NFL, how many of them have really excelled when they get to the NFL? Not as many as you would think based off of how good their teams have been historically. But then Dave said something that I wanted to debate with you, was Penn State is not an upper echelon program in college football. He kind of hypothesized there's 10 or 11 programs that are elite, and then there's a second tier there. And Penn State is kind of nearer to that tier with your Tennessees and other programs, Miami's programs like that, and that they're not what they think that they are. So I wanted to start the conversation there.
In terms of like results, I would agree. I think in terms of like resources and what they should be, I would disagree. But I guess it really just comes down to what's happening on the field and the results are certainly second tier results, despite the talent level and the resources and all those things I just mentioned. So, and that's what's tough though. The conversation still comes back to what we always talk about here. Like, totally understand. I mean, I think James Franklin's fraudulent, but like,
I do too.
if you
I'm not a
if you
truther at
fire
all.
him, then who else? Then who?
Well,
You know?
that's the thing, right? I read an article that was like James Franklin is the guy before the guy. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? Because you always hear like you don't want to be the guy who follows the guy. Well, what if there is a coach who is what Dave said, the Mark Richt to Kirby Smart, where I'm keeping the seat warm for you, and then you're going to come in there. And Mark Richt was at Georgia for a long time, similar to James Franklin, has been at Penn State for a long time. And what if there is a coach out there who comes in and can do all the things that James Franklin was unable to do and get Penn State to that elite level? And I think that's very valid. I'm again 4-21 against the top 10. I think he's like 2-21 against the top 6, which hurts my heart that Frank Beamer is the worst in that category. But again, Frank Beamer couldn't win the big game. That was something that was mentioned about him. But James Franklin has that in spades, and said somehow it's like he's an excellent head coach. At what point are
Well,
we going to change that?
it's very he's very Brian Kelly at Notre Dame esque. Brian Kelly lost a lot of games that were like head scratchers, and he could never win the big game, and
The
got blown
biggest
out in a
game.
lot of big games. And
Yes.
so there, I mean, I think there's a lot of parallels. And again, I mean, I fell in the same trap. It's like, well, gosh, like you fire him. I'm like, it's really hard to do what he's currently doing. To go 9-3, 10-2, like consistently, like, and that's what James Franklin's been doing. It's really hard to do that. That's not like something you can take for granted. But I agree at a program like a Penn State or a Notre Dame, like you have higher expectations. There's tradition there, and you have, again, like I said, the resources to facilitate those desires. And when you have someone at the helm that seems to not be able to put those resources to use in the best way, or utilize them the best way to get the results necessary, it's frustrating. And it does take, like, granted, Marcus Freeman still has a lot to prove, but he's at least shown that he can win the big games. He can beat some of these top teams. Yeah, he's had his head scratchers too, but he's also a first-time head coach that's young and figuring things out and got kind of thrown in the fire a little bit. James Franklin, got hired away from Vanderbilt to take that job after having a little bit of success there. And he's been there for a long time, like you said. And you'd think he'd be beyond some of that. I mean, he should be taking that next step and establishing Penn State as an elite program. And he just like he can't break through that wall.
And it's not as if he hasn't had talented players, at least talented college players on his roster. It's not as if the schedule hasn't been favorable to them at some point. But I think what it ends up coming down to is they can't beat the Ohio States. They can't beat the Michigans. And now you add Oregon. And if USC ever gets it together, and if Washington ever gets it together, these are programs that have had a lot of success and can certainly come in and be formidable. I mean, right now in the new look Big Ten, there's one champion, and that's Oregon, an old Pac 12 school. You know what I mean? And there is something to be said about is Penn State falling behind the longer that they stay with James Franklin. I mean, they could easily go 10-2 potentially. I don't think that's in the cards because I think they still have some tough sledding to go here. But when do you pull the trigger? Like, what is the line? Because it feels like if Penn State, maybe this is a hot take, if Penn State was truly an elite program the way that they think that they are, wouldn't they not have gotten rid of James Franklin already?
Maybe so.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I'd be very curious. I think in today's modern landscape, like you're going to be more impatient than ever because of the money that's being poured into the roster. And if you're not getting the results, people are going to quit ponying up the dough. And especially in the day and age now of revenue sharing, like if that revenue sharing isn't, you know, resulting in wins and big time wins at a school like that, you're gonna start wondering if we have the right guy at the helm. I don't know when the right time is. That's a question that I think is really hard to answer. Um, but this might be the time. You just hired you have the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country, and Jim Knowles, and you just gave up 42 points to UCLA, who was managed to be held to 14 points by Northwestern, 10 points by New Mexico, 10 points by Utah, and 23 by UNLV. You know what I mean?
They
Like,
scored like the combined amount that they'd scored all season
yes.
long in that one game.
I mean, and we know Nico's a good player. He was a good player at Tennessee. I mean, we've talked about that decision or whatever, but I mean, maybe New Heisel's the guy to unlock that potential UCLA for him. But 42 points to UCLA with an interim head coach, a program that's on life support by all intents and purposes, is unacceptable when you have the roster and the coaching staff that they have in place at Penn State.
Here's a criteria to think about. Last year, Ryan Day was the guy that we talked about in this vein quite a bit. And what do you think, if I were to ask you directly, what is the criteria that would more likely get him fired? I'm talking about Ryan Day at Ohio State. Would you say it's losing to Michigan is the number one criteria?
For Ryan Day, yes. Probably
Yes.
consistently losing to Michigan, yes.
So think about that for a minute. Think about that's the criteria for Ohio State. That's an elite program. Ohio State, by resources and field results, is an elite program, I would say. Dave might disagree, but I think you probably understand what I mean here.
Yeah.
And losing to your one big rival, that's the bar that you have to meet, right? If Ryan Day had beaten Michigan last year but didn't win the national championship, everything is probably fine. He did it in reverse order, and I think that national championship may have gone a long way to keeping him on the sidelines there. If he loses to Michigan this year, that national championship gets wiped away. So knowing that now, Penn State has lost to their rivals in all the big schools 4 out of 25 times that they have played them under James Franklin, and he's still sitting on that sideline. What that tells me is their criteria, they may not even know what their criteria is. It's way lower than losing to your one rival. I think that's Ohio State having those kind of standards may be crazy, but I think at this level of college football, the amount of money that's getting paid, that tells me that their standards are super high, and that is what makes them feel elite to me.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that that's one thing. Penn State, I don't know if they have that team. I don't know if they have like a tried and true rival, and part of that's probably because they were, they're not by today's standard, they're a traditional Big Ten team, but they were an independent for a really long time before they joined the Big Ten, and so they didn't have those long-standing rivalries like the Ohio State-Michigan game. But the crazy part is that moving forward, they still have Ohio State. They have Ohio State and Indiana back to back. They're at the Shoe, and then they host Indiana. If they can find a way to win those 2 games, does it change the narrative?
It doesn't, though. But that's my point is, and we've spent a lot of time on this, but I think it's important because we're going to segue into other programs that are kind of at that same place, and it's when does the narrative need to be that we need to win the big game? Because like you said, they don't have any natural rival in the same way that Ohio State and Michigan are natural rivals. But if you've been in the Big Ten as long as they have, you never beat Ohio State, you never beat Michigan, what is the criteria then? If those are the 2 schools that you're aiming for in this conference, and now you add again Oregon, who's perennially great all the time, and if you can't beat them now, they've lost 2 in a row to them. They lost the Big Ten championship last year, and now they lost to Oregon just a couple weeks ago. Where's the bar, man? That's what I'm saying is so, okay, great. You win those 2 games, but then nothing comes of it. At some point, something has to come of it. Win a national championship or beat one of those people.
Does
it make the playoff, though? Because
probably is, honestly.
But remember last year, they made it to the semis, right? I think against Notre Dame. And they played nobody to get there. And you and I both said it could make the semifinals, but they played nobody to get there. Unless they beat Notre Dame, that's the only way that we're going to legitimize that run in the playoff. They didn't do that. And so, I don't know, man. It's just frustrating because I'm not even a Penn State fan, but I'm looking at this and thinking, with the amount of money that's getting thrown around, decide you want to be 9-3 every year or decide that you want to be a national championship contender every year. Do something. I don't care what it is, but the longer that they wait and don't do anything is actually a decision that they're making.
Oh, 100% it is. Yeah, like the fact that there is no decision is definitely a decision. And it probably takes, I think I heard the buyout. I don't know, I'm probably just pulling this out of my rear end in true Iceman and coach fashion,
Perfect.
but I thought I heard it was like 25 million. So
It's
I'm sure
high.
I'm sure that's a roadblock to be considered.
It's
And
nothing compared to an SEC buyout. Freaking buy him out and
right.
just get your guy. Cause like you win a national championship and that 25 million will be well spent.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't know, do you think that some of it's like, I mean, because I sit there and wonder, like, let's talk about this for a moment.
Sure.
Let's say hypothetically, like, Ohio or Penn State, they finish the season poorly. They do decide to move on from James Franklin. Who do you think is someone who can come in and take them to the next level and get over that hump that would take that job?
That's interesting because, okay. So think about Penn State and where we see them. Like, what SEC school would you stop at that you would say, oh, if they're coaching there, they would definitely take this job? Like, was it Eli Drinkowitz at Missouri? Would he take the Penn State job? Would that be a
See,
total? You know what I mean?
I saw a video, and this guy's like, I think, and he mentioned Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. He mentioned Drinkowitz at Missouri, and he's like, I think these guys would like to go take a real power four job. I'm like, they have one. Like they have one. Like I that's what I was just blown away by what I'm like. You're talking about guys that have like their head coaches in the SEC. Like I think Missouri is a better job than like Mississippi State. Like
Oh, yes.
or whatever things like. I mean, yeah, there's definitely tiers in the SEC, but I oh man, like a bad job in the SEC is still better than I think. Like I think that like Vanderbilt, not even like not even like current Vanderbilt. I think that Vanderbilt's a better job than like Illinois, like a
Really?
middle of the pack,
Illinois?
like Big Ten job. I mean, I just think that like a low level, what's considered to be a low level SEC job is better than a middle of the pack Big Ten job, in
Oh
my opinion.
boy. That's interesting because Vanderbilt has been a laughing stock in the SEC forever. And there's only two guys that I can think of in my lifetime who have brought them any level of success. And it's the current guy, Clark Lee, and James Franklin. That's it.
Right.
So James Franklin took the move to Penn State. If Penn State calls Clark Lee, he's 100% taking that job.
You think
100%
so?
taking. Yes, because like
I think
again,
he's a Vandy alum. You think that matters?
I look, the check is going to be big. And I just believe that that's the case. But also, Penn State still has this aura to them that people believe that they are at a higher tier than I think they actually are based off of the results of the last 20 years or so. And I think that the perception is that is a better job than Vanderbilt. SEC be damned because many people see the bottom half of the SEC as not as appealing, right? Is Indiana an appealing job just because Kirk Cignetti has made a great impact there? No, like that's not an impact job, even though it's a Big Ten job and the Big Ten is a lot better than it once was. You know what I mean? I think that that does matter to people. And I think
I
that
think
if
Kirk Cignetti would take the Penn State job.
100% he would. I mean, I know Rick, sorry, buddy. I know that you think he wants to live in Bloomington his whole life, but unfortunately, he does want to move to Happy Valley if they come calling. And I just think that that's the case. I think that there are a ton of guys who would take that job, and even guys you'd think, huh, that's surprising because they seem like they have a good gig. Penn State has some allure to them. I think it's the fact that they are in that old school category of old timey college football programs that were around and had so much success, but in the modern era have not been that. And who wouldn't want to be the guy to get them there, right?
Oh yeah, you would be. I mean, yeah, I think you would be worshipped because there's certainly like unlike like the Alabamas of the world where you have Saban and Bear Bryant, like in even Florida State with Bobby Bowden, but Jimbo kind of like bridged that gap, to where it's like okay, like you're not going to be necessarily compared to Bobby Bowden anymore because Jimbo won there too, but with Penn State, I think they are desperate for a new hero. After just kind of the Joe, everything that happened with Joe Pa and all that stuff, the Sandusky stuff. I mean, I think they're desperate for like a new legend to cling to, to sort of put that. And I'm not saying that Joe Pa deserves that or anything else or whatever. Like,
Oh, it's not. Yeah.
it has nothing to do with it. I just think that they are desperate for something else, a new legacy to cling to, and sort of really put that behind them. Um, and yeah, so I think there's definitely something attractive about being that person there. Like I said, I think that there's plenty of resources. I don't think that's a problem.
Listen, if Nick Foles has a statue outside of Lincoln Financial Field for the Eagles, Clark Lee can get himself a statue in Happy Valley, wins a national title. All right. Like, that's just how it works. But okay. So when we talked about resources and we talked about these programs, the other school that was talked about heavily this week was Texas, because both of them fell out of the top 25, which is interesting in the sense that they were preseason ranked 1 and 2, which does help my argument that the preseason rankings are stupid, but I get why they exist. Anyway, so now they're out. And Texas is getting to that point where I don't know how they haven't gotten here yet, but Sark is starting to get questions about Arch, like real questions about his health and all of that. And I get the sense that he doesn't want to answer those questions. But look, they have a big game coming up this weekend. They're staring at possibly being 3-3. And what we were told is that this is the best prospect we've ever seen in college football history. I think there's trouble brewing, and I'm just so curious as to why it's being played this way.
I'm not sure. I mean, I saw a video and it made me laugh. I was like, they're like, man, like I want to find Quinn Ewers and apologize to him because like I've ripped that guy apart for the last 3 years and maybe he wasn't the problem. Like, I mean,
I said that. Remember when we came into the season? Did it tell us something that Arch Manning wasn't the starter over Quinn Ewers, especially after he got hurt and came back? Like, they brought him back.
Yeah, like, is Sark not the genius we all think he is?
I see. Sark has been sort of ornery. Now, I know that for the most part, he is kind of that prickly coach guy, but he's been very ornery whenever he's been asked about Arch. And I don't know if that's the pressure being ramped up or if something is wrong and he's just not handling it well. I don't know. It's very, very weird because that team I've not seen a team be so up and down, not even up and down, like mid and down when you're supposed to be the number one team in the country. It's very strange to me.
It is weird. And one thing I'll say too, I think that if there's anyone who's equipped, who has the support system in place to handle the criticism as a starting quarterback, it's Arch. I think that, I mean, I'm not saying it's probably still, I don't think he's probably very comfortable right now with what's going on and the scrutiny he's under. But at the end of the day, like, he's also a person that could just like walk away from all this and be perfectly fine. Like, there's got to be you'd think there's some comfort in that and being like, I mean, I know that he's got a standard to live up to because of his name and things like that, but I still maintain that he's got to be banged up. And the fact that if he isn't, like I said, then there's a major problem. And I don't, because when I saw him playing games last season when he played, I mean, like, I saw a different guy than we're seeing now. And I
Not
don't
the
know if
same
he's
guy
got,
this year
I don't know if he's got
whatsoever.
the yips or what. Like,
Not even close to the same guy that played Mississippi State. Nowhere near.
no, and it's I mean, who do you think really ultimately takes the fall if this season really goes off the rails? I mean, who's the scapegoat in this situation?
But it's so multifaceted because it's not just hurting Texas. It'd be one thing if it was solely a Texas thing, but I don't think that it's out of the realm that Arch Manning wants to go to the NFL. And I'm going to sit here and tell you right now, if this is his NFL tape, he's not going number 1 overall, not even close, right? Like, he's playing like a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick. And those guys very rarely make it to the upper echelon in the NFL. So who is this helping? Whoever the scapegoat is, I have no idea. But my question is, who is this helping? It's not helping the program. It's not helping Arch Manning. And I don't understand how, with the support system that you talked about, which has steered him in the right direction, what's the plan?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what the plan is. Here's a possibility to consider. What if the season ends and Arch Manning hits the transfer portal? What does that tell us?
But again, like, the way that he has, I mean, I guess what you're insinuating is that he hits the transfer portal, and that means that something was going on behind the scenes. That's the idea, right? But I don't know. Like, this is all very strange. Now, they could come out and blow the doors off Oklahoma and everything is fine, but I haven't seen him look that way. And everybody said he got his mojo back. It's Sam Houston State. Come on, folks. Like, that's not the kind of game you want to get an idea of. Oh, he's
Right.
back.
And now I'll like I see the comments there about Arch, and I think that I get the point. It's a good point. But then I think about, and I know I'm going to talk about like a generational guy like Trevor Lawrence. He came in and like he didn't need. I mean, sure he developed and got better, but like he's not one of we didn't watch him and say, oh man, like he just needs some time and he's going to be good. And he sat behind Deshaun Watson for a year and honestly probably could have taken the job from him. Truthfully, I mean,
It's possible, yeah.
he was really good as a true freshman. And as a Notre Dame fan, I watched CJ Carr at Notre Dame, and I'm like, that dude didn't take any meaningful snaps last year, and he seems just fine. And I mean, I know that's person to person, case by case, and you're right. In most cases, these young guys need some time to develop. But if there's anyone who had the resources and the means to be prepared for this moment, it was Arch Manning. And so I'm a little surprised if it is just a matter of him being a little rattled and not ready. That surprises me. And maybe I'm not being fair by saying um, that he should be because of like his name and all the things he has going for him. But like, if that dude can't be prepared at this point to be the starter, I mean, because what he sat the last 2 years, right? I mean, it's not like
Yes.
not like he was just a redshirt freshman last year. I mean, this is his third year on campus, and I would think that by now he'd be ready to come in and take the reins, and it has not appeared that way. And again, like if it's an injury thing, I agree. Big problem with the program. I don't know who their backup quarterback is, so I might not even have one for all I know.
I'm sure they have one.
I know, but like it's a very weird situation, which allows all this crazy speculation. And um, I don't love like going after or being too critical of like college players, but like this day and age, man, like these guys are making big money, and you got to produce, and he is not doing that.
I'm not criticizing Arch Manning. I'm asking a question. What the hell is going on in the program at all? Because everything is bad. Arch Manning, his mechanics look weird, and I get it. He doesn't have a lot of meaningful snaps, but he doesn't look like the same guy. The mechanics don't look the same. The continuity that he has with the team, it doesn't look the same. We're coming up on what, game 6 or game 7? So it's like, at what point does he become like better? Like, you're supposed to look better, and it's just a weird situation where it seems like there is something happening, nobody's talking about it, and the whole program is in chaos. And it's like, Sark, get it together, because you made the playoff, you didn't win a national championship. The grace is not that long. You don't get much of a grace period after that. And if you got this guy, who is probably one of the more highly touted recruits that Texas has had at quarterback since Vince Young, by the way, last guy to win them a championship, and it just falls apart, that's not a good look.
No, it's not. And there's at Texas, there's no excuses, right? I mean, they check every box as far as what you would want in a program, as far as support and resources. So, I know that that doesn't always translate to wins on the field, but they've got everything you could want going for them. And the fact that they're in the position they're in is very interesting, especially compared to expectations that were put on them coming into the season. And what I give is crazy as the AP poll has been this season. I actually give them credit for
Me
taking
too.
Penn State and Texas completely out of the poll, because that does poke a few holes in our narrative that like where you start helps you, like even if you start poorly, it helps you kind of stay in the hunt or whatever for a while. Because I mean, I would almost expect, they fall back to like 15, 16, 20 somewhere. No, I mean, they just ripped the rug right out from under him, which I think is fantastic.
I thought it was good too, because if you look at Texas, they have 3 wins, 2 losses. 2 of the losses were to teams that are actually good. You know what I mean? And or at least one of them is really good. The other one is probably, which we'll talk about in a minute, a fringe good team if they ever get their shit together. But I agree with you. I was happy that the AP poll did it, and I was happy to see people like Budge also be in agreement on that. So something to look out for the rest of the season. 2 more items in our little highlights here before we get to some college slate. North Carolina football, it's a disaster, obviously. Bill Belichick is there. And a lot of people are making a big to do about this because they think that UNC needs to pull the rug out on this. But I feel like they transferred like 70 new players in there, so
Yeah.
there's a ton of turnover. He's never coached in college. Did people really think that North Carolina football was just going to up and be good because Bill Belichick just stepped on the sidelines? To me, that seems kind of ludicrous and a little bit presumptuous of UNC football, of all programs, to think we're going to get it together right away.
Yeah, 70 new guys in the program.
That's a lot.
Been a long time since Bill Belichick has coached any college football. And I think that
Someone looked that up, by the way. When was the last college football game that Bill Belichick actually coached in? Somebody in the comments do that for us.
For some reason, I feel like he was at Navy. I don't know why that's.
And yeah, probably, but like that's a long time ago.
Yeah. When games were still in black and white on TV, probably. I think that I heard something along the lines of, I heard the trust the process was thrown out there. And like I get that. And I think that people's problem isn't that they're losing, it's how it looks and how they're losing. Just the optics of it aren't great. And I again, like I don't know what people expected. Like Bill Belichick is he's not a miracle worker. He's a football coach. By all accounts, he's a guy that wants things done a very specific way. And we speculated here going when he took that job, how his philosophies would translate to the college player. And I mean, so far, I guess you could say not well by at least by the way it looks. And I don't know, like, how long do you give him to figure it out? And I heard an interesting take that like there was a court case, that had to do with the TV rights from Clemson and Florida State were trying to leave the ACC, and there was a court case, whatever they bought. Anyways, it bought the ACC about 5 years before those programs can split for greener pastures. And UNC has, I mean, it's sort of a ticking clock for a program like UNC because you need to make yourself nationally relevant in football. So you don't get left out in the cold when the next phase of this realignment happens. And I think that when the TV rights run out for the ACC, like you're going to see another big shift where like the ACC might dissolve entirely. I mean, who knows? I mean, there's going to be, I think you'll see teams go to the Big Ten. You'll see some teams go to the SEC, and what's left of the ACC, who knows what that will be. And so, you do have, this light at the end of not light at the end of the tunnel, but you do have this kind of expiration date on when you need to get your shit together and matter. So you're an attractive commodity when it comes time for the split to happen. Okay, never coached in college.
Bill Belichick has never coached a game in college, but I guess for me, if we say that this is the most impatient era there's ever been, I wouldn't disagree with that because there's just too much money involved. So if you're going to be impatient and your expectation is that you're going to turn a program around right away and you're going to transfer as many new people in as they did, if you're going to fire Bill Belichick in the middle of year one, why the hell are you hiring him in the first place? Like if you want to be impatient, you got to hire somebody who at least has head coaching experience recently in college football, or else what are you doing? Like that just feels like they have to at least give him this year. If they fire him, to me, it means that something else is going on that is affecting the results on the field, and that's a completely different story. But if it's just based on results, I mean, come on. Like you're going to buy the guy out halfway through his first. Why the hell did you hire him?
Yeah. I saw someone say like the parents are. Who cares if the parents are mad?
Parents?
Like,
cut it out.
Care. Like, do not care. Could not care less. Let the parents be mad. Doesn't matter. But I mean, what's interesting is I like to kind of juxtapose the two careers in college football of Coach Prime and Bill Belichick, right? Because both sort of, I guess, let's call them to some degree celebrity head coaches. And now Coach Prime had a lot more talent, at least high-end talent at his disposal when he took over Colorado. Bill Belichick, has not had that. His son is nowhere near what Shedeur or Shiloh Sanders were. Steve Belichick not getting it done on the defensive side of the ball for the Tar Heels. But I don't, and that's got to be an interesting situation for him too. It's like, okay, like what if it's one of those deals where they're like, hey, like you got to make staff changes if you want to stay, and does he send Steve packing? I mean,
Well, the idea was that Steve Belichick was going to get the job once Bill Belichick got it running. And I'm like, what sign would you have that would even come close at this point? Like, come on.
like Steve Belichick looks like he lives in like a cave somewhere.
Good God.
Like,
Yeah. Just very strange. But I said last night that this stint at UNC is going to go somewhat of a long way to kind of see if Bill Belichick really can still coach. And then if you flip that around to the NFL, your theory about quarterbacks is looking better and better every time Mac Jones goes out there and throws for 300 plus yards with like a broken foot or whatever it is. He got like a bunch of broken bones. And under Kyle Shanahan, he looks like the guy that I think people thought that he could be, which is just amazing because if you remember, the 49ers traded all of those assets to pick number 3. They took Trey Lance, but the whole time, Kyle Shanahan said he wanted Mac Jones. He's got him now on the cheap, and the 49ers actually might still be viable because their schedule's easy, and they seem to have 2 quarterbacks who do the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think if you have the right coach in place, I think that the quarterback, I mean, yeah, you got to have a guy that can do what you need him to do, but like it's not quarterback by committee because you don't play more than one, but like it's just plug and play, man. And like Kyle Shanahan has proven that in his time in San Francisco. And obviously that doesn't work everywhere. We've seen plenty of backups come in other places and fail miserably. But and of course, still a small sample size of Mac Jones. We'll see how the season finishes out. But let's see. No, in there.
Yeah, UNC
No,
has
I
not won a
mean,
conference championship since 1980. I wasn't born yet.
no, that's true. But Mac Brown had them going a little bit. I mean, they were decent.
Mac Brown
And
always lost the big game there, though.
right.
Always lost the big game there. But
he
yeah,
still won the bad ones. Like, and that's
you're
what
right.
I mean.
You're
And
right.
that's what Bill Belichick's not even doing that. But again, turned over
70 people.
70 people on the roster, which is like 3/4 of the roster at least.
It's an entire NFL roster plus some.
Yeah, and they usually carry a little over 100 guys, I think, typically it seems like, and that's a ton of people to turn over. And I heard someone say like there's some dissension among like the Mac Brown. I'm like, Mac Brown players are still there. I'm like, what, both of them? Like how many of them are even left? Like it's
the Mac Brown players. I mean, look, Mac Brown was old too. But anyway, my point is quarterbacks and coaching, and this kind of is going to loop us into some NFL stuff, and we'll get back to the college games in a minute. But Mac Jones obviously is in a situation where it works for him. And I heard this take recently, and it was about how I think Kyle Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell, coaches like that, they have a system in place that is more plug and play. And it's something that you've said is going to be more rampant in the NFL coming up there. And that the more I look at Bill Belichick now, remember, I used to say all the time that why does one singular person in the Brady Belichick era need credit when it's probably a combination of both? And the more time that goes by, the more bad that Bill Belichick looks coaching, the more I think the system was Tom Brady, and that was just it. And that if Bill Belichick never had that, I don't think we'd be talking about him in the same way that we do now, because they had Mac Jones, who very clearly can play well in the right system, and they couldn't get it right. He looked worse and worse every year that went by. And I think it's just more of an indictment on him. But coaching, what's more important to you? Is it the system or a combination of the system and the culture? Because Mike McDaniel has a good system, but it seems like there's something wrong internally with that team. But Shanahan, they seem to have all of it. And Mike Vrabel in New England seems to have a culture that is sticking there. So like when you think about a coach in the NFL, what are some of the things you think are like important and why they would be successful somewhere?
So let me start by saying this to provide context. So like in college football, high school football, college football, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. It's talent. It's players. Like players, talent wins. Period. Whatever. Obviously, but I mean overall, talent wins. NFL, everybody's talented. The talent margin from team to team, like you mentioned in a video I saw, the talent from the best team in the league to the worst team in the league is marginal, and so then that brings in the other things in the equation, right? System, culture, and I think that I would say it's a combination of both, because I think that it takes a special person, a special culture to get buy-in from these guys, right? From grown men. Um, I mean, especially like let's look at Mike McDaniel. Like, let's just be honest, like just visually from the outside looking in. If Mike McDaniel, I mean, obviously everyone deserves like the standard level of respect, but like, does Mike McDaniel give you the impression of someone who like, demands like respect?
No.
You know what I mean? Like, not at all, right? And I'm not saying you can't be successful that way, but I can't see him being able to really like lean on a guy to get more out of him, and that guy just not laugh at him. You know, I mean, and it's like, and I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's how it should be, but it's got to be a factor. And so for that reason, and we've talked about too, like I think he would maybe have some success in college because he probably is a little bit more relatable, and he's going to be older than a lot of those guys, which helps. But like, or all of them. But I think that culture really, really matters, and I know it's something it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, and some people just kind of like are, oh, that's overrated and this and that, but like in a world where everything else, I mean, the NFL is designed to be as equal as possible and to give every team an equal chance to be successful, and I think
Yes.
it does come down to things like culture. I mean, the Cleveland Browns, like the Cleveland Browns are bad
Yes.
because they just have a terrible culture, and a lot of it comes from the owner down, right?
The
In these
Jets,
organizations, the Jets, another one,
Bengals
just
too. I know they have Joe Burrow right
Bengals.
now, but Bengals. I
I
mean,
mean,
up until
Raiders
recently, the
tradition. I mean,
Lions, Raiders.
yeah. I mean, there's some teams that have some a broken culture, and like, and you could say what you want about the Cowboys even, but, like, I think you could say that the Cowboys at least have, and I mean, like, you could be critical of, like, their lack of, like, playoff success, but you can't deny that they have a culture, right? I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys have an identity, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that raises the floor for them. The floor is higher for an organization that has an established like culture and a standard, which I think the Cowboys do. Now, do they meet expectations based off, you know, the talent that they have and things like that? Maybe not always, but like, I- it's so, I think it's so important, again, not to be redundant, but when everything else is equal, those little things mean a lot. And that's why, like, I think that the Lions and Dan Campbell, like, he's established and created a culture there. And that's why, Jared Goff's been average at best, and like he's excelling there within that system and culture.
This is fascinating now because I'm thinking about teams in the NFL that have been historically successful or coaches who've been historically successful. And it's Andy Reid gets Patrick Mahomes, but I would say that Andy Reid has a certain culture that sort of goes with him, right? Like
Yeah.
they buy into what Andy Reid is all about because he buys into the players. It's sort of like a symbiotic thing. I would say that the Steelers have a culture, right? They
Yes.
have something that is very tangible that you kind of know, oh, this is what this team is about. And there's teams that we perennially think of that are anti that. Do we or that we don't ever think can win a serious game in the NFL? I think you probably can think of half the league. Sometimes you're like, I would never think that, like the Dolphins are a perfect example. Even if the Dolphins are talented, and they have been under Mike McDaniel, have we ever thought that they would be a true contender? No, because they as an organization don't have an identity in any way that is somewhat stable that continues to go with them. And we made fun of Dan Campbell when he was hired. We made fun of him when he talked about biting kneecaps off. But the culture actually works and it's now there. And you wonder, how long can this be sustainable? How long can Dan Campbell keep this up? Because they have something that unifies the whole team. Buffalo, their culture is the fact that everybody fucking loves Josh Allen. That's their culture. And they play so hard for that guy. That those little things matter. And now thinking about the whole league, it's like, wow, no wonder some of these teams like the Cardinals, who have been around forever, nothing to show for it because you don't think of anything when you think of them besides not winning.
Is there a helicopter landing on your roof?
There is. Yes.
Are the Navy SEALs ready to
No,
raid
they,
your?
yes, they are. Yes. Yes, I may or may not be here very, very soon.
That'd be great for the show. No, I mean, you're right. There's just there's an identity. And I think even like, looking back to like this the St. Louis Rams, like the greatest show on turf, like highly talented, but like they had an identity, right? Which is, identity slash culture that had been
Yes.
established. And I think you could probably look at nearly every successful franchise that's had like sustained success and put your finger on something about it that you feel like was at the heart of all of it. And um, beyond the measurables like, talent, obviously. And so to circle all the way back to your original question, like, yes, I think that stuff matters. I think it matters a lot. And I mean, I think I incorporate like system and culture together because I think that you need them both. Like, I don't think that one can get you by without the other. I mean, not like sustained long term success. Like, you could have a great system, but if you don't get like buy in, which is a result of like establishing a culture, it's not going to matter. And you could have a great culture, but if you don't have a good system to like, for that culture to live in and exist in and operate in, it doesn't matter. So I think that there are two things that are very important. And I think the 49ers have established both of them, which is why they have the ability to play whoever at quarterback. And this isn't, I'm not disparaging the talents of those guys. I mean, they're obviously highly talented quarterbacks. They're in the NFL. But they're not people who are widely recognized as like the top tier of quarterback talent in the NFL, but they produce top tier results.
And that's really what's important. Although Kyle Shanahan needs to win the big game at some point because he's not yet done that. So go all the way back to James Franklin, buddy. At some point, you have to win something. But let me ask you too. I think I said Josh Allen already, but can a player be responsible for this change or establishment of culture? Because one guy who I've texted you about literally all year long is Baker Mayfield. And the Bucks, they've won championships. I don't know if I would associate them with like this long-standing culture, but clearly Baker is playing at a level that has that team's culture to be like, we are never out of a game. And is that a viable culture? Is that something that can be sustainable and keep a team winning and be successful, even if that's one championship? Is that legit?
Yes, and I think that, and the question is it the player that's sort of establishing the culture, or is it of the player that's championing the culture of the coach? And now I would say that, or maybe it's that marriage of like a coach's culture with like the perfect player to like embrace it and embody it. And just like, Mike's comment there, like I think that Cam Scadaboo is like that, he's establishing that culture um for the Giants, and I think that
CTE culture?
but I mean just that hardworking, like hard-nosed, like, and it's funny because it's kind of that, like, I feel like that, and this goes back to the Dan Campbell stuff where everybody kind of like, scoffed at his like comments, because like the NFL, was always this very masculine, like hard-nosed, like, tough guy league. And it kind of, it seemed like maybe sometime over the last like 20 years, not saying it got soft, but like just like
They went woke, dude.
the
Just say it.
dynamic.
Just say
No, and
it.
I'm not even saying that. The dynamic changed though, right? The game kind of
Yes.
changed. It
Yes.
became like a more of a finesse game. And I feel like you're starting to see like this trend back towards, like, it's becoming more masculine again, I guess. So you're seeing this trend back towards this like hard-nosed mentality though, I think. And this just like, we're gonna out physical people and outwork people and just be tougher. And it's working. And I don't know if, and maybe that's just a random thought that doesn't, I don't know, and maybe I'm delusional, but like it I feel like we have a lot of examples of it to point to, like the Lions and like Baker Mayfield and like Cam Scadaboo and some of these guys that are just these gritty dudes that play the game a certain way and start to establish the identity of the team.
I think you're right. I watched Baker duel it out with Sam Darnold, of all people, this past weekend. Again, another example of, what happens when you actually get into a nice culture and you're not on the New York Jets. It's amazing, or the Cleveland Browns. It's amazing what happens to you. But man, I swear to God, like Baker goes out there and it just doesn't matter. And he's going to do the thing where he throws a pick like he did against the Eagles and you're like, what is that? And that's what you're going to have to live with him. But I love him and players like him because he is out there and he's not tall. I mean, he's 6'2". Obviously, he's taller than me, but like compared to what we consider the cream of the crop at quarterback. He's on the shorter end of that. And my God, he just goes out there and does whatever he has to do this year to win. And it's so fun to watch because the core of this show, which by the way turned 3 years old the other day, you and I always loved the gritty players. We were going to give out the Rust Belt. Remember, we love that stuff. And Baker embodies that in such a way that it has to be contagious, especially when you're winning. I don't know. Baker right now is one of my favorite players to watch in all of football.
He's almost like he's kind of like Brett Favre light, and like his just the way he plays the game a little bit, like just sort of like he's gonna make some crazy mistakes and like take
Yes.
unnecessary risks and whatever, which is kind of how Favre played the game a little recklessly. But he makes the big plays in the big moments, and that's kind of all that matters.
So before we move on to looking at some football games for this week, Indiana Jones, we both agreed, is a great nickname, and the Colts keep on winning. Have you heard Cam Scatterbo's nickname?
I have not.
Or one that I've heard floated, which I think is just tremendous. Marshall Chalk.
Okay. It took me a second. Took me a minute. That's fantastic. I love it.
And I just thought I will take that. Indiana Jones I thought couldn't be top, but I'll tell you what, we got a top 2 contender. All right, man. Yeah, there's something about that, and I just think it's hilarious. Anyway, so let's look at the week that we have coming up for college football. So last weekend, no ranked matchups or just one ranked matchup, just to kind of put a bow on it. Miami continues to look great. They took out Florida State. They've swept the entire state of Florida at this point.
Mario
and I think
Cristobal to the Dolphins?
No. I think that no, absolutely not. Like there's just no. Although good question there. But anyway, I think Miami's the number 1 team in the country personally, and I think the only reason that Ohio State is because they get the benefit of the doubt as the defending national champions, and their defense looks really good. But man, and Florida, speaking of, their boosters, as you said, can't catch a break. Like they just want to spend their money to fire the guy, and he goes and wins that game, and they're like, God damn it! Like when is this guy just gonna finally like Billy Napier does just enough to be on that fringe of I'm gonna get fired, but not so fast.
Yeah, there's a guy somewhere in Gainesville that just has a check on his
He's
desk, just waiting to sign it. Or he has it filled out, and then he's got to avoid the damn thing. When Billy Napier, maybe this guy just needs his back against the wall a little bit. Like
that's got to be so frustrating because you don't want to root against the team. You want them to win, but you also don't want the coach there. Like it's not a secret that they don't want Billy Napier there.
Do you think there comes a point where they just they're like, we got to move on regardless?
I would think so, but Penn State doesn't seem to feel that way. But
that's true.
So who knows? I have no idea. Alabama beat Vandy. Vandy I still think is a good team, but I think Alabama might actually be figuring some things out this year. And Ohio State's defense is insane. So speaking of Ohio State, they get to travel to Champaign. This is going to be a bloodbath, right?
Yeah, probably. I
Yes.
think so. There's no reason to not believe that it will be. I mean, I think that like the way that Indiana beat Illinois, it was kind of a little bit of an anomaly, but like I don't think Illinois is that much worse than Indiana. But
No, I don't
it
think
was
so
the
either.
combination of Indiana being a little better and Illinois playing really poorly. But you got to know. I mean, obviously they're going to get Illinois' best shot. Brett Bielema's no slouch. I think it obviously be good for the program for them to be competitive. If they find a way to win the game, I think you could put it up there with one of the top wins in Illinois football history.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know they went to a Rose Bowl, late 90s, early 2000s, but they really haven't done a whole lot.
Juice Williams.
Yeah, they really haven't done a whole lot since then. I just feel like this is one of those moments where, all right, this is it. Illinois can make things happen. And we thought they were a team that could be a Cinderella, but they got blown out by Indiana. And until you can't be the man until you beat the man. So
maybe Indiana's the best team in the country.
We're going to talk about them in a minute. Actually, let's talk about them now. Could there be a more divergent thought than Indiana football traveling to Outson Stadium to play Oregon football? Could those two programs be further apart in the optics of what we think of them?
What do you mean? They're both in the Big Ten.
Yeah, right. Sure.
It's a conference game.
Absolutely.
Long time Big Ten rivalry. No, it's a weird matchup. Like it just when you see it's like, oh, Indiana and Oregon, like and they're both good, and it's still just like, eh. Like it just doesn't feel like a game that you'd want to turn on, turn on TV.
But it's
I
a
mean,
top
we're
10 matchup. This is a big
right. I
deal.
know that's why I'm saying that. That explained like that's like I'm trying to back up your point of like that. It's just so weird, like that. It just I don't know. It's very strange, but like in a top 10 matchup at Autzen Stadium, and you would think it's like, oh, is this Oregon and Washington? Like Oregon and USC? Like, no, it's Oregon and Indiana. It's just very strange. I mean, I think that this game though, I think this will decide who's the number one contender um to take a shot at the top dog, Ohio State.
I looked at this game and I still did a double take and had to go back and be like, wait a minute, there's numbers next to both of these teams, single digit numbers next to both of these teams. Cause I almost skipped over it because I still don't see Indiana and think top 10 program. And that's kind of where we are, where this game is fascinating in that regard. But I hope Indiana doesn't get blown out. Like, I hope they keep it close because even if they lose and it's a close game, I think that still tells us that Indiana's still good. Like, I don't want the shine to be taken off of Indiana, if that makes sense.
I think, I agree. I think Oregon is really good. Like I know you said you think Ohio State is the best team. This clearly the second best team in the country in your opinion. Like I think Oregon, I've been very impressed by them.
I
I
have
think they are
two.
very, very good. Did you see Signetti's like press conference this week where he's just like glazing Oregon and Dan Lanning, like just he like literally he's doing everything in his power to not like give them any ammunition. Like he's like they are very talented. He's one of the most talented up and coming head coaches. He's going to be one of the greats. Like it's just like it's so awkward because you know exactly what he's doing. He's just trying to like, not give them any ammunition at all, which is I mean good for him because that hasn't worked out well for anyone else. Just ask
No,
Mike Gundy. But I I really like Dan Lanning though, and he's just a fiery guy. He's a great coach, and they have a good football team. I expect this to be a good football game.
I hope so.
I really do, man. I think this is going to be a good football game, and I think it will tell us more about Indiana than it'll tell us about Oregon.
I think so too. Another Big Ten game that seems strange, Michigan at USC. Now, USC lost to Illinois, and the reason I bring this up, do you remember that commenter on TikTok who ultimately ended up telling me that Oregon won the national championship because nobody plays all their good players in the playoff anymore? Do you remember that guy, that back and
That's
forth
the
that I
most
had?
ridiculous,
Right.
ridiculous thing ever. Yes.
It started out because apparently a Big Ten team can't beat a Pac-12 team, and I immediately said, "You mean when Michigan beat Washington?" And they said, "Well, you're bringing up the past." Well, okay. Anyway, but that exchange ended up getting Dave texting me this: USC blew up the Pac-12 so they could lose at Illinois at 9 a.m. Pacific, and I thought that was hysterically funny because it's true.
It is. And I really hope that whenever like whatever college football is going to be happens, that they regress back into like geographical aligned divisions or something because it's I mean don't get me wrong, like I think it's cool like the thought of like USC coming to play a game in like Champaign, Illinois, like that's cool for Illinois fans. Sucks for USC, but like
Sure does.
but and I don't know, I mean, but then there's like matchups where you're like, okay, UCLA at Rutgers, like just make it a tie. Like, like don't even make it take the trip. Like let's just call it a tie or give both teams a loss. Like, I mean, there's definitely matchups that these cross country things that are just absurd, but like, the Penn State USC's, the Oregon Michigans, Oregon Ohio States. I mean, that's what we all wanted to see when this happened, but still it's very strange. Especially with the time differences. When you add the time zones, to it, the disparities, and then like when you add things like big noon kickoff that like to take a game that should be a primetime game and play it, at noon is absurd, or 11 my time, or like I said on 9 o'clock Pacific. I mean, the only great part about that, I guess, if you live, in the Pacific time zone, is you're literally getting football right off the bat in the morning, man, with your breakfast.
I didn't
So
mind it when we would visit Hawaii and the NFL would start at like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever. And it's like, man, Sunday night football's over. It's 6 o'clock. I'm ready to go. Like, we still got the whole, I can
Yeah.
go to bed early. So
Yeah.
there is some merit to it. The reason I bring this up though is Michigan is such a weird team because they're an enigma. We don't really know how good they are.
I
And
agree.
their one big game was on the road against Oklahoma, which they lost. I mean, they didn't get blown out. So this is kind of another test of, okay, USC is good but not great. You got to travel on the road. You kind of need to win this one to give me a little bit of confidence that you are actually a good football team, but I just feel like they're an enigma. So that's why I put that one down there.
I need
Moving
USC.
to,
My Notre Dame fandom needs USC to blow them out.
yeah, good luck. So Alabama, we talked about Missouri earlier. Alabama, their reward for beating Vanderbilt after beating Georgia is now getting to play Missouri on the road. This one to me is intriguing because I feel like this is two big games in a row, and you're looking to see, does Alabama respond here? Because this is a target on your back game for sure, and going into a road environment that I don't know I would consider hostile per se, but obviously Missouri is talented, and I think Alabama needs to watch out here because they've been riding high, and you know how it goes, man. It only takes 1 week to overlook.
Oh man, like I know that I mean Budge said it early in the year, like don't sell your Alabama stock. And I think he's right. Um they've looked really good the last few weeks. And I think that, they look really good at Georgia. Was it Georgia, right? Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
They look
then
great against Georgia.
and then they looked good against Vandy. And I just think that like Kalen DeBoer knows what's at stake here. I mean, more so than just the season. I mean, like his tenure at Alabama is like, I won't say it's on the line, but like there's a very small margin for error. And so I think that you're gonna see the best version of Alabama. I think, like you said, they're figuring some things out. And I just don't think that Missouri's quite ready for this.
I don't think they're ready to beat them, but I could see the first half being kind of tough. And maybe very similar to the Vandy game where it takes a little bit for that talent disparity to really come out, really shine. But I agree with you about Alabama. I only say that to watch out because it sometimes is hard when you have big game after big game after big game. And
Hey, it's
these
the
are
SEC.
and it's it's the Big Ten, as noted by UCLA. It's a bloodbath out there. But you just never know. With young kids and or I say young kids, but like with kids at this age, 18 to 22, sometimes emotionally you catch them on a bad day, but not something that they should be overlooking. But I think Alabama is more talented. And we talked about Texas playing Oklahoma. I think John Mateer is going to try and come back, which, I mean, if he's ready to come back, sure. But at the same time, if Oklahoma can win with their backup, I would think they should keep him out until he is fully healthy. Maybe there's some pressure to win this game, or maybe they just want to bury Texas for good.
I was just thinking that, like, what's the narrative if Oklahoma blows them out in this game?
Well, we'll talk about that next week for sure because I actually might find clips of the press conference after that because again, Oklahoma is their greatest rival. Is that still true?
Yes,
For sure, right? So losing to Oklahoma is never seen as a good thing. Losing to Oklahoma on top of how they've looked all season long, oh boy, buddy, like buckle up.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's not the same, but it's up there with Ohio State, Michigan in terms of rivalries.
Right.
That means something to the fan base. And I mean, yeah, the Red River Shootout or Red River Rivalry or whatever they call it nowadays.
I can't say that
PC,
without stumbling.
Red.
I can't do it. I can't.
But no, if Oklahoma goes out there and just takes them to the woodshed, it's gonna get really ugly in Austin.
It's going to be uncomfortable for Sark for sure. I don't think that he's on the hot seat, but it's uncomfortable. Like they're going to make his life very uncomfortable because he's going to have to answer a lot of tough questions that the prickly coach bit only works so far. But when you start piling up losses, especially to your rivals, you can't get away with that shit anymore. Like you've got to be more straight laced with it. Like how many tirades can you have when these questions are being asked that are legitimate questions? Like if Brian Kelly loses more games, no, yes, right. Okay, I just said no, yes, right. I agree with you is what I'm saying. Sark is gonna. I don't know. Sark could be in trouble. They got to figure this shit out. But I think I would not be surprised if Oklahoma does blow the doors off of them, especially if Mateer comes back and he's healthy. He was a Heisman frontrunner before he got hurt. I think it's Carson Beck now, but like or Dante Moore. But you get my point, right? Like they were looking good. I will be. I kind of almost want that to happen only because we'll get to talk about it.
Yeah, be good drama.
Speaking of drama, Florida, Texas A&M. So Texas A&M, Mike Elko and the boys, top 5 program. But they're another program that I feel like we never think, oh, they can win the biggest one. And here comes Florida, the Florida Boosters, and Billy Napier. I don't think they're winning 2 big games in a row personally, but let's watch out because I feel like Billy Napier is ready to fuck around and keep his job.
Well, again, I'm looking at this through my Irish colored glasses, and I need Texas A&M to
Go
get it done
Aggies.
here. What is it? Gig 'em? Is that what they say down there?
Yes.
So
Will we see you doing the sway at the
oh,
bonfire and all that?
they are. I do still like. I do think I've heard people say this, and I do think there's some truth to it. That like Texas A&M, like they're like a cult,
Yes.
borderline cult. It's weird.
It's definitely weird for sure. Mike Elko's one of them right now, but I
Yeah.
agree. I think the Aggies are going to win, but man, I swear, Billy Napier living on the edge. We talked about Brian Kelly, South Carolina. So South Carolina had high hopes, haven't really delivered on that. Brian Kelly can't really afford a loss to the Gamecocks. This is kind of a weird, like, which narrative is going to win out here? Because let me ask you, if Shane Beamer loses this game, and let's say that they make a bowl game, but they're 6-6, like, is Shane Beamer kind of feeling a little less stable in his job because they had high hopes and they didn't work out? Similar to Brent Pry.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't be feeling that way.
Are you
Um,
thinking though that you want to get rid of him if you're like South Carolina? Not rid of him, but if you're like, okay, maybe this isn't our guy. Like, are you starting to think that way, or is it just more of a, hey, we gotta do better?
yeah, I mean, like even some of the best programs have had, those bad seasons here and there that pop up where just everything goes wrong. Has he built up enough equity to like weather one of those seasons? I guess we might find out. Um, I don't know, man. Like I don't know. I don't know enough about the South Carolina fan base to really gauge the temperature on that situation. I don't know if you've talked to UB recently to get his take, but um,
Would I get a solid take? Generally, in the course of the first quarter, he goes from utter doom to utter success back to utter doom. So it's hard to kind of get a gauge on how he's feeling.
but I mean, and that's the best part though. Is like that might be a question for him though. Is like
I'll
where's
ask
the
him.
benchmark here? Like where is there a world where he doesn't keep his job after this season?
He grilled me on Brent Pry, don't forget. He's like, how many wins does he need to
Right.
keep his job? I'm like, none. He needs to be gone.
Yeah. How many wins does Shane Beamer need to keep his job?
Well, it's more a coming into the season, they were preseason ranked in the top 15. I think they were like number 11. And Sellers got hurt in their first loss. So I understand that completely. But they haven't looked the part. And that's, I think, the issue here is you have a lot of talent on that team and you look unprepared. And it's very similar to the Brent Price situation where you bring 22 starters back and you look like you didn't practice at all in the offseason. And
Well,
that to me is unforgivable at a certain point.
yeah. Well, in South Carolina, they have a brutal schedule. Like
They
their
do.
schedule is tough. Um, but you still gotta. I mean, yeah, you play who you play. You gotta go out there and get it done. I mean, and I guess at the end of the season, we can look back and say, okay, they only lost this game by a field goal. They only lost it, whatever. They were in that game, so on and so forth. But like, I don't think that the decision makers are interested in like in close losses. But I don't know. South Carolina is not um, Alabama, right? And so I think that the tolerance for subpar seasons is probably greater, I imagine. And yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I wonder how much these things, when it comes time, towards the end of the season. Obviously, I'm assuming these ads have a decent understanding of what coaches may be available. I wonder if like that plays into their decision making. It's like, oh, that guy became available. We really want him. If it weren't for the fact that that guy's available, we'd probably stick with this guy. But since that guy's available, like we're moving on. Like I remember when
It's
the Cubs did that with Joe Madden.
oh yeah.
They had I can't remember the dude's name even. They had it for like 1 year, and then he was fine. Like he didn't have a bad year at all. But then Joe Madden became available, and they're like, "See you later."
Oh, yeah. So, just in case you want to feel better about yourself, anybody who's listening or watching, this is South Carolina's remaining schedule. And I'm going to stop at one point because the last two games are whatever. So, they play LSU this week. Then they play Oklahoma. Then they play Alabama. Then they play Ole Miss. Then they play Texas A&M. All in a row. Brutal. That's like 0-5 potentially. So, you're sitting here thinking they could be 3-7 after that run.
Those are all teams that, like, at some point in time earlier in the year, before the year, different people have had in their playoff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and like probably at least there's a likelihood that two of those teams will be playoff teams. It's impossible, I think, for them all four to be, just because they're going to beat each other up. But, like,
Sure.
there's a good chance that two of those teams are playoff teams.
This is crazy, though. They don't play a team. This is the only team they play outside of the top 6 for the next 5 games. And that's insane. And to think then they get Coastal and they end the season against Clemson, and that's their right. Like, that's one of their rivals. You lose to Clemson, oh boy. And they did a lot of that.
This Clemson team.
Yes, correct. And oh my God, that would be what happened to Dabo. Anyway, there's that one. The last one I wanted to mention was Arizona State at Utah. The only reason is, buddy, this is like another great Big 12 game. It's at 7:30 Eastern. They did it correctly finally.
Yeah, at least this one is played at normal time, like prime time.
Yes.
Arizona, I don't think Arizona State they don't have the Scattaboo magic that they had last year.
No.
Utah doesn't appear to, I mean, they're a good team, but like I think, Texas Tech appears to be the cream of the crop in the Big 12 so far. So it'll be, I mean, it's an important game for these two programs to keep themselves in the conversation, but I feel like this is it's weird saying this, but almost like a second tier Big 12 game, which, I don't know.
But it's at the proper time.
It is.
Honestly, This is when Texas Tech and Utah should have been. But I don't really think Texas Tech would have lost either way, because they seem like their money has been well spent. And I would be very surprised if Texas Tech was not the representative of the Big 12 in the playoff, because they look better than every other team that I've watched play.
Yeah, they look really good.
Yes.
And I mean, and I haven't seen much where he talks about it this year. I'm sure he has, but like I know last year, like Budge was really high on Texas Tech, and they had a decent year last year, and but they've really turned the corner this year.
Yes. So a couple of NFL games that I'm interested in. There's not that many, because I feel like it's still too early to kind of know like what's what. A lot of bad teams playing bad teams. But we talked about the 49ers and the Bucs earlier. They're playing each other, so we're going to get to possibly see Mac Jones do his thing again, and Baker's balls will be on display as they are every single week. I'll be fascinated to watch this one because, again, this is like two cultures now for different reasons meeting each other. And I think that Kyle Shanahan is a superior coach to Todd Bowles, but Baker seems to do everything that he can to win a football game. So I think that'll be fun to watch, especially if you have Red Zone. But go Baker.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a game where, like, me as like a more casual NFL fan, like, I mean, yes, I'm a Colts fan, I guess, if I, but I'm not like real passionate about it. As a casual NFL fan, this is a game I want to watch. Like, I'm not going to be upset no matter who wins. These are two teams I think that are fun to watch, that have a lot of good narratives and storylines around them, and so I'm looking forward to what should be a good game. Yeah, I mean, Buccaneers will win the final seconds.
All
maybe
of their games have been that, so that's a pretty solid take.
Yeah, Baker will. It'd be like what that South Park meme of his balls in the wheelbarrow rolling.
I have that on hand every week so that I can send it to somebody. Because somebody will text me, they'll be like, Baker, and I'm like, this is all I have for you, and it's just Randy Marsh with his balls in a wheelbarrow walking around South Park, because that's what it is. Like, Baker legit just takes them and plops them in and says, all right, let's drive the field and get whatever we need to get, and it's incredible. But the other thing is Lions and Chiefs, and we talked about culture and how these are two teams and two franchises that feel like they may be going in opposite directions. I mean, I don't want to say I'm going to count the Chiefs out yet, but their schedule is pretty favorable the rest of the year. So if they lose this game, which I feel like they're going to, because the Lions are the best team in the NFL right now. I understand that there's other good teams, but they look like they are missing nothing. Dan Campbell has the heartbeat of that team. And the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, and they have some good receivers, but it seems like they have nothing else. It seems like the mojo is kind of gone. And I feel like I don't know. This to me feels like teams that are going the opposite direction, which means the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl.
I think the reason it feels that way is that there was a lot of question marks about the Lions coming into the season losing. Um, my goodness, of course, I can't think of the man's name. I could probably recall it anytime. The Bears head coach, their offensive coordinator, and
Ben
so I
Johnson.
think Ben Johnson. Yes, very common name. That's why I couldn't remember it. Anyways, I think losing him, people wonder what that was going to look like. And did they lose their D coordinator too?
Yes, unfortunately, Aaron Glenn is the head coach of the
Yeah,
0-5 turnoverless New York Jets.
So lost both coordinators, and I think we all wondered how much that was the culture, right, and how much of it
Yep.
is just good coordinators. It's culture's winning and it's prevailing, and I think that's why we feel really good about the Lions because we're like, okay, like there's staying power here, and then you're right, like the Chiefs, they just don't look good. I mean, there's plenty of time for them to figure it out. But are the Kansas City Chiefs and Taylor Swift's career on parallel trajectories? That's that's
It's funny you
I
say
heard that
that.
she released an album recently, and I've heard that like even her like biggest fans are not pleased.
You know, I heard that recently, and I think Dave made the comment that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift seem to be on the same trajectory because both of them can't do what they used to be able to do at a high level, and he's like a big Swiftie. I don't know. It's not really my genre of music that I would listen to, but the Chiefs feel like this team. Like last year, they won a lot of games without a lot of weapons, but this past Monday night they lose to the Jags. Did you see Trevor Lawrence fall down, managed to get back up, and still run into the end zone without being touched? Like he wasn't touched whatsoever, and it's like they didn't lose those games.
Right? Yeah, I did not. I did not see that, but they're losing to teams we're not used to seeing them lose to. They're just not looking good.
No,
And then there's and then Mike's talking about there's definitely like some potential, some parallels to like the Pats, where they had that little bit of a lull there after their early run of success,
it's like 10
and
years.
maybe but I mean maybe we need to wait for maybe the roster needs to turn over a little bit,
Fell down twice. Sorry.
and get some young talent in there, and send Travis Kelsey down the road and get some. I mean, there's got to be distractions that come along with that whole situation. I don't think that's not the reason they're struggling, but like also, I mean, Andy Reid's no spring chicken. I think Belichick had more meat on the bone when the Pats, kind of hit that little gap in between where Andy Reid, he's on the home stretch. I got to believe
He has to be. I mean, he's in his 70s now, I think, or very close to it. So I think that's true. But as we had a comment here about Mahomes, I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen play. Certainly most talented, and certainly can do things and win games in ways that other guys can't. And you have to believe it until he proves that he can't do it. But I think it's going to be a struggle. But I think the Lions are going to win this game, and I think that's going to be indicative to me of what do the Chiefs have to do to bring it back. And if the Lions go into Arrowhead and win handily, they are. I can't wait. I want the Lions to do as well as possible because it's so much fun to watch. And it would be great to see Dan Campbell act like a total buffoon while getting the Lombardi trophy. To me, that would be just spectacular.
Is there anyone else though that like I mean like of the short list of people that I'm like, man, like I'm so happy for that guy. You know what I mean? Because like you just know, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything to everyone else that's won it. But like it means so damn much to that man. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
to do
Yes.
that.
A
Just
guy
because he wears his
who
heart on his sleeve.
he does, a guy who I don't think will, or he might as a backup, but I would love to see him win it, is Kirk Cousins, because I think Kirk Cousins really deeply wants to win. And it's a different vibe than Dan Campbell, obviously, but that's a guy who I feel like I would root for to win if he was in the Super Bowl. There's not that many guys who I'm like, man, I really want that for them. I felt that way about Andy Reid when they finally won their first Super Bowl. I thought, I'm so happy for Andy Reid. Like, I want that for that guy. And unfortunately, there's not a ton of guys in the league that you would just feel that way about. Maybe if Joe Burrow gets back there again, be able to do that because I do like watching Joe Burrow play. But Dan Campbell right now, as far as coaches and likability and just, I don't know. I would love to see him win a Super Bowl, even if Lions fans would be insane. You know what I mean?
I know that you would love to see Sean Payton hoist another one.
I'm coming around on Sean Payton. He's not as much of a dick this year as he has been in other years, but I still think that the Broncos are good, but I'm not so sure that they're as elite as some other people think. That's all I'm going to say, and that's my bias coming
I
in.
haven't watched them much this year.
Well, their two losses have been on a last second field goal. One of them was to Indiana Jones and the Flying Joneses out there in Indianapolis. And I can't remember who they lost to the second week. It might have been the Chargers, and that was a road game. But they just beat the Eagles. So, and a cross country trip.
Yeah.
So they obviously have something going for them. I just have such a hard time trusting Bo Nix because he sucked at Auburn. Like, just sucked at Auburn. And then I guess he's better because he's at Oregon or was at Oregon, but I don't know what to trust about that personally.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But I mean, there's no doubt that Sean Payton knows how to coach ball. And maybe he's one of those guys. Maybe he's like Kyle Shanahan, where you just give him a quarterback, man.
I think that's what he prefers. Because, like, Drew Brees, when you really look at Drew Brees, he was the ultimate, I'm going to say this, but I don't mean it in the negative, game manager type quarterback. Like, he was the best that there's ever been doing what you needed to do within the offense because he could do some things a little bit better. But ultimately, the way that he looked and like his build, the way that he plays, I don't think you expected him to do the dynamic stuff that other guys could. But he's better than, I say, system quarterback.
He was an elite system quarterback. Like, he was elite.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
As in, like, he's a Hall of Famer, no doubt, completion percentage high, won a Super Bowl. But Sean Payton, his system is meant to be for a quarter. He's not looking for the Mahomes. He's looking for the guy who can do what he needs to do. And that's kind of like Bo Nix is in that same mold. But I don't think he's Drew Brees, obviously. And the comparisons have been there because Peyton took him. That's just my opinion, not those
you're
of
right.
the
No,
entire
I think
show.
you're right. Because I think that's why a guy like Aaron Rodgers only has one Super Bowl is because, I mean, I don't think anyone like debates his talent level.
No.
I mean, there's people that think, he's one of the best throwers of the football we've ever seen.
In his prime, I would give you that too.
I think that he's got to be a hard guy to get him to operate within any system. It's just not in his DNA to like conform.
No.
And you know what I mean? Like, and it's got to be tough, especially when you have someone as talented as he is and really like Patrick Mahomes, not much different. I just think Andy Reid is probably a little more masterful in like corralling that and getting it to fit within a system to some degree, which is why they've had success. But I mean, there's it takes a special coach and a special system to really like corral some of these highly talented guys. And I do think that there's something to be said for like a preference of a guy that will just do what you ask of him.
I think with Mahomes and Andy Reid, there is a culture of allowing the players to have input. And I think that that's part of it too. Like, that's kind of almost how you corral a guy like Mahomes is he gets input on plays and is more integral in how they build their offensive scheme. But the part of the scheme is knowing that Mahomes can extend plays and make things happen. And I don't think that's really what the Sean Payton scheme is about or the Kyle Shanahan scheme is about. I do think that they make those systems so that guys can come in and do exactly what they need to do, right? And Brock Purdy's kind of on that trajectory of he may be the kind of quarterback that like Drew Brees was, where you're like, okay, that's a system guy, but boy, he does all of those things super, super well type thing. And I'm curious to see if Andy Reid leaves, Mahomes is still there. The next guy who comes in, I would hate that. Like, I would hate that job because now you've got to establish your own system. You got to establish how do we work around this. And I feel like Mahomes at that point will be like Brady. I get to call the shots around here, and that'll be damn interesting.
Yeah, that will be interesting for sure. And it's a good marriage, because you have like Mahomes and his young talent, but he has like if Mahomes played for Mike McDaniel as opposed to Andy Reid, it'd be so different. And that's what I'm saying. Like you have a guy that demands respect, that's had success in the league for a long time.
Yes.
Like you look at that man, you're like, he knows more than I do. Like, and so you conform, and where you don't get that with some of these younger coaches. And so I think that, what, like you said, I think that you get Mahomes to play within a system, but like I said, what he brings to the table is his ability to extend plays when things go off script. And that's something that is like that's an intangible that not every quarterback has. And that's what I think really makes him elite is yes, he can play within the system and do things on time, but then when it all falls apart, like he makes plays that other guys can't make.
Agreed. Look, buddy, we have gotten to the end here. We talked about a lot. I mean, we kind of went back and forth, a little bit less structured, but some of these topics kind of wove into each other between college and the NFL. And I always love chopping it up with you about football. It was a tough 2 weeks, man. I mean, we didn't have it, and obviously I did the show last week, but there's a different vibe whenever we get to talk football. So
Yeah,
luckily, we
absolutely.
have a big game or big weekend of football coming up this weekend. And hopefully we'll get to catch some college action. You and I tend to be more busy on Sundays, so I kind of catch NFL as I can get it on Red Zone. But lots of college stuff. So before we get out of here, my man, anything you want to tell all of our peeps?
Just appreciate those of you participating tonight. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of good banter back and forth, a lot of good takes and opinions. It's always fun to do this, man. It's a pleasure. Glad to see that Marshall Chalk got in the end zone again. Love to see that. Uh, Wonderful nickname. And fun football season it's been, and we're just really getting into it. There's so much more that will happen and transpire, and it's going to be a lot of fun to continue to talk about it every week.
Agreed. And also baseball playoffs. We're getting to the league championship series in baseball. Yankees are out. The Phillies are out. The Dodgers are moving on. So I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of sports happening right now, and we are here to cover as much of it. Before we get out of here, if you want to leave us a take, 703-718-6314 is the number. You can search INC Sports, Iceman and Coach on social media. Do whatever you want with that information. We're just happy that you are here in some capacity. So for me, the coach, and everybody that's here, we will see you next time. This is Football Frenzy.